Welcome. My name is Julia Mahoney. I am the Education Program Administrator for Renew Theaters, and this program is sponsored by the Vesta Fund, which allows us to make this free for our members at the Ambler, the County, the Princeton Garden, the Highway, as well as the Majestic Theater in Gettysburg, which is partnering with us this fall. The Vesta Fund has provided us with an additional grant to expand the series and to bring in other theaters and speakers. We are officially launching our Deep Focus educational program with a grant from the Vesta Fund. And we're continuing with our classic film series, which we've had for a while, but are adding other tracks, such as the Middle Eastern Cinema series, which we are starting this evening. And we also have an Asian American film series and a Wes Anderson series. So please keep an eye out for those as well. Tonight, we will be discussing A Separation. We also have an event tomorrow on Wes Anderson's Fantastic Mr. Fox, as well as some other events upcoming this week. So you can find more information about past and upcoming events on our website, deepfocus.film. I just want to go over a couple of quick Zoom protocols. So I do request that everyone remain on mute unless they are speaking. We will start with a talk led by Zardosht and then open it up to discussion. And I ask that you use the raise hand feature, but since we are a very intimate group tonight, we'll probably just be able to talk openly as the discussion goes on. And you are also welcome to use the chat feature on the side as well. It's another good way to engage with the material, and we can bring that into the discussion. So our speaker for tonight is Zardosht Afshari. Zardosht is an Iranian filmmaker whose short films have been screened in some international film festivals in the countries like the US, Iran, Poland, Croatia, India, and Italy. He received his MA in dramatic literature from the University of Tehran in Iran. He moved to the United States in 2019, and he is a student of the MFA program in Film and Media Arts at Temple University in Philadelphia. All right, Zardosht, I hand it over to you.
Thank you, Julia. Thank you. I'm really glad that I'm here. I am Zardosht Afshari. As Julia said, I'm from Iran, and tonight we want to start this Middle Eastern film series or Middle Eastern cinema series. The first film is one of my favorite, A Separation by Asghar Farhadi, Iranian acclaimed filmmaker. And I have prepared a short, very short actually, PowerPoint for this film. And I try to, go through the history a little bit, geography, form, aesthetics, and everything in this very short PowerPoint or my presentation. And after that, we can talk about this film and go through that. So let me share. Can I share my screen, Julia?
You should be able to, yeah.
Okay. So first. Okay, do you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. A Separation, as I said, this is the first night that we are talking about the Middle Eastern cinema in this online discussion by Deep Focus. In this series, we'll talk about three films by Iranian filmmakers and one film from Afghanistan from an Afghan filmmaker, and also was supported by another Iranian filmmaker, Mohsen Mahmoud. A Separation, the film that tonight we'll talk about. Before talking about this film that won, it was the first Iranian film that won, or maybe the only Iranian film that won the Academy Award for Best Foreign Language Film. So before that, I want to go through the geography and a little bit, give you very general information about Iran and Tehran, because the location of this film is in Tehran, the capital of Iran. As you know, Iran is located in Middle East, and also some people say, some Asian people call it Western Asian country. And the population of our country, or my country, Iran, is 82 million. So Iran is the world's 80th most populous country. And also is the largest country in the Middle East, and maybe 7th largest in the world. So for most Asghar Farhadi's film, the locations are in Tehran, the capital of Iran. And Tehran is located in the north of Iran. Here is Tehran. And just this is a very, maybe populous city. I've just brought a, picture from Tehran. You see the map of Tehran here. And this city, you see, this is a kind of, virtual line that's divided Tehran to north and west, north and south. And most rich or wealthy people of Tehran live in north of Tehran. In this film, for example, Nader and Simins live in north of Tehran. But most maybe working class or lower class of this city, with over 15 million people in this city, they live in the south part of Tehran. And this street named Freedom Street. So this is a kind of, virtual line that divided Tehran to, two different parts. So now I just want to go through Asghar Farhadi's, filmography, because it's very important for analyzing this film. Asghar Farhadi was born in 1972, and he started working as a writer because also he has, Master of Art in Dramatic Literature from University of Tehran, the same university that I came from. But he started his, making feature film, or his debut was Dancing in the Dust in 2003. Before that, he has written some maybe series for the, national television of Iran. But he started his debut as a filmmaker by making this film, Dancing in the Dust, that was a love story. The second film, The Beautiful City, also was made, written and directed by himself. And I have separated these two films from the third because in these two films, the focus of Asghar Farhadi was mostly on, a working class or lower class of Tehran. Maybe like other Iranian films that you have watched, most of the time you see kind of low infrastructures and poor people or something like that. But there is a shift in these 2 years between 2004 and 2006 in Firework Wednesday. In Firework Wednesday, Asghar Farhadi shifted his focus on middle class. And this is a story of a couple in north of Tehran, and the person like Razia in separation comes to their house and something happens, and he analyzes and scrutinizes the relationship in social class. After this film, Iranian critics and also the international critics maybe realize that okay, another great filmmaker from Iran comes to the industry or film industry. But after About Ellie is a film just about the, a group of, friends that they were in the same university from middle class. And this film for the first time, won a Silver Bear in Berlinale or Berlin Film Festival. So after this film, he made A Separation, the film that you watched, and we want to talk about that. And it's very, very interesting that I listened to Farhadi's interview when he, submitted this film to Faj Film Festival, the most prestigious film festival. And he said that I have not prepared any subtitle for this film, because it's about just Iran, and I'm not sure that the international, or the foreign people can understand this film. So the person who had come from Berlin Film Festival in Tehran to choose or pick some films, she saw the film without subtitle, and she chose the film for the Berlin Film Festival. And in Berlin Film Festival, the film was, the film won the Golden Bear. I think A Separation won all the awards on that year in 2012 or 2011. In each festival, he was he won, the Golden Globe. He won the, Academy Award for Best Foreign Language Film, and most of the critics call this film as a, masterpiece. And also, it was the first Iranian film that won the Academy Award. I highlighted the past, and everybody knows these are two films that Asghar Farhadi made outside of Iran. The past was made in French, and everybody knows was made in Spain with French and Spanish, cast and crews. But he won his second Academy Award for The Salesman in 2017. The film was made in 2016, and I love this film because of two reasons. First, because it's a free adaptation of a plays by Arthur Miller, The Death of a Salesman, and is an Iranian free adaptation of that film, of that play, and I love that play, so I love that film. And also free adaptation from another Iranian play by Ghulam Hossein Saidi. So also this film was nominated for the best screenplay, but that year Woody Allen won the, best, screenplay award from the Academy Award. But the film won again. So Asghar Farhadi is a person who won Academy Award for 2 times. And his last film, A Hero, was, the premiere was in Cannes Film Festival in June 2021 and won the Grand Prix of the festival. And the film was screened in the United States in Telluride Film Festival and in Toronto Film Festival. And maybe, I'm not still sure, maybe it would be nominated by Iran as, a foreign language film to compete with other films around the world. So just I went through Asghar Farhadi's filmography to give you an overview that we are talking about this director with this, masterpieces that he made. And in most of his films, especially the maybe last films, he tried to show this contradictions between social classes in modern Iran, in contemporary Iran. Now I go through and just give you some information about the characters of this film, and maybe it will be very interesting for you to know that Peyman Mahdi started his experience or maybe his career as an actor in Farhadi's film. He was basically non-actor, and he was a script writer before. He had a role in About Ellie. He wasn't leading actor at that film, and his second experience was the film that you watched as a leading actor in this film. And now, as I know, after this film, he was, he was invited to some series, some, international maybe products or maybe film products around the world. And I've seen some series in the United States that he has a role in them. So maybe it would be very interesting for you that Farhadi has asked him to be the leading actor of this film. Leila Hatami, or Simi, Nader's wife, because the Iranian name of the film was a separation of Nader from Simi. But when they wanted to release the film to, maybe for distribution, they just shortened this and make it, a separation. Leila Hatami, his father was, because his father died maybe 20 years ago, was a acclaimed Iranian filmmaker, Ali Hatami, and also her mother was an actress before the revolution in Iran. So she comes from a very, art maybe family, and some people believe she is a symbol of innocence in Iranian cinema. So she was, a professional actress before, this film. And these two characters, Terme, Nader, and Simin's daughter, actually, she is Asghar Farhadi's daughter, and she was, it was the first time that she had a role in a film. So basically, she was non-actor. And Nader's father, Ali Asghar Shahbazi, that unfortunately he died just maybe a couple of years ago. Also, he was kind of non-actor, He wasn't a professional actor in a way that you can see in all the films, maybe in just some series, but yeah, also he was non-actor. And Razia and her daughter, Razia Sara Bayat, this character, and Kimia Hosseini. Sara Bayat, before this film, she had a role in a series. So she was a professional actor, but not in a way that you think that, But after this film, she was invited by some other directors to, have a role in their films. Hojjat, Razia's husband, this character, Shahab Hosseini. Shahab Hosseini was a professional actor, and also he received a Best Actor award from Cannes Film Festival for The Salesman by Asghar Farhadi. So also he's a professional actor. I just brought this information to you to let you know how Farhadi could, work with this team of non-actors, actors and actresses to, and he does, this, he goes this way in all of his films, a team or group of non-actors, or maybe, some non-well-known actor or actresses, and some professional actors or actresses in his films. Okay, I want to go through, maybe social or maybe political background of the film. Maybe it could be helpful for analyzing the film, because this film was made in 2010 until 2011. And in Iran, in 2019, we have a movement or political movement that was called Green Movement. In 2019, we had the presidential election in Iran between these two people. Maybe you know this guy, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, maybe you have heard his name, and this man, Mir Hossein Mousavi. So Mir Hossein Mousavi, and there was an disagreement between Mir Hossein Mousavi and his supporters with the government, because government believed that Mahmoud Ahmadinejad has won the election. But Mir Hossein Mousavi and his supporter believed that the result of the election was fraudulent. So just I want to give you and maybe history of these two people. Mir Hossein Mousavi was the prime minister of Iran from 1980 until 1988. This was the wartime between Iran and Iraq. And Mir Hossein Mousavi is, or was maybe, is because he's still alive, but he's under house arrest in Iran, because after this movement, still he and his wife are under house arrest. So Mir Hossein Mousavi was Islamic, leftist, politician. And after 1988, when, other presidents came to power, they privatized everything in our economy, in Iranian economy. But this man, Mir Hossein Mousavi, believed in such kind of socialist, economy. So most of the people, middle class people, like Simin, like Nader in this film, most of the students were supporter of him. So in this film, you see that we have, the color palette of the film is green at Simin and Nader's home. There's a very, maybe kind of to show these people are supporter of, because Farhadi couldn't show this, very, directly. Just I brought this information that maybe would be useful. And some people say Farhadi just, make film about judgment, about morality, social justice or something. But most of the time when he has been asked by the people in the festivals that, okay, what's the theme of your film? They say, just, I want, the audiences to just think and question everything. So I love this quote from him and I brought it here. I don't think it's important for the audience to know my intention. I'd rather they left the cinema with questions. I believe that the world today needs more questions than answers. Answers prevent you from questioning, from thinking, from the opening scene. I aim to set this up. And I just want to talk a little bit about the form and, the aesthetic choice or of the film. It's one of the best example of three-act structure. Three-act structure is a way that, that, most of the Hollywood film, have been written by this kind of formula. It's not a very, but Asghar Farhadi believe, in this kinds of structure. And in most of his films, if you watch, you see this kinds of, a structure. Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, setup, confrontation, and resolution. For example, here, we understand that, is a first climax, maybe, that we realize that Razia has left home and something happened. Here, we understand that, her child has been, died or something like that. And here we realize that, no, she had an accident. And, this is, I think, this script could be, taught as an example of this type of, a script, three-act structure. And causality is the linear. The script is full of details. We have several incidents in the story that all of them are connected to each other. And in this film, you see Farhadi has used handheld camera because he loves this no realism and he wants to everything to be, realistic, kind of documentary based. And you don't hear any music in the film, just in the title. It comes from maybe this kind of realism and also from Dogma 95, another movement in Scandinavian cinema. But Asghar Farhadi doesn't, like using music in his film, like Darden Brothers, Belgian filmmakers, or other filmmakers around the world. So most of the time, I ask myself to pay attention to these, points in this film because I have watched this film several times. The gazes between the children, because Asghar Farhadi said in one of his interview, after that movement, I wanted to these, classes, the people of these classes talk to each other. You see in the film that Terma and Somaye, when, in Hojat's home, they look or they gaze, there is a gaze between them. And it seems that this hatred has been transferred to the next generation. And also using a windows, glasses as the distances between the characters in the film. And the names that has been, used for the characters. For example, Razia and Hujjat, they are Arabic name because, and or Somaye, Sumaya, their daughter also is an Arabic name, but Nader and Sinin and Terme, they are Iranian names. Iranian people are influenced by Islam or something, but they have kind of dual identities. I think most of them, or maybe the majority of them, say, okay, we are Muslim, but we are not Arab. So most of the religious people in Iran, most of them, not all of them, have Arabic names. But here, Farhadi wants to say that this middle class with Western outlook and, they have Iranian names or something like that. And the color, the green balls, and maybe the custom design, and if you you see the custom design for different, both family are different. For example, Razia has a scarf or chador, but Simin doesn't have chador. Chador is, basically kind of, custom that religious women in Iran wear, but maybe the more modern or more Western, westernized, or maybe more Western, more people with more Western outlook, just, especially women, doesn't, wear chador. And also tie, Nader's father, there's a tie. So tie is a, kind of maybe symbol of, being Westernized in Iranian culture or something. So I just try to finish it just maybe half an hour. And thank you for your time. And I can stop sharing and we can talk about the film or any questions or something.
Thank you, Zardosht. Yeah, we can open it up to the group now if you guys have any questions.
You're welcome, Julia.
Thank you for this background. We talked about this movie with a group that we're involved in recently, and I must say none of us picked up the green walls at all. So that was really right.
Incredibly helpful.
Yeah, we loved the film. And we'd seen a couple of his other films. We saw The Salesman, and then we saw
Everybody
Knows Your Name.
Everybody knows, yeah.
Yeah, and so when my husband reminded me, it was the same film director, it was like, what? That can't possibly be right. The filmmaker, because it in so many, but when I thought about it, it was like, yes, that makes a lot of sense. But wow, he was just a remarkable filmmaker. Do you know anything about how he made it? And one thing that we had read was that he used one camera in making the film. And so you have those scenes that just seem so claustrophobic, and the cuts are, bang, 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 bang.
Yeah, this film has been, because I was before coming to the United States, 3 years ago, I had a kind of master class with Asghar Farhadi for 6 months. And we taught each other, and I asked him, is it good for me to go to United States or something like that? Also, I asked him about that. So just I know that, and also I know the DP of the film, one of the greatest DP in Iran. They just use a one camera, handheld camera, and I asked him about because most of the Hollywood film, they have a very strict storyboard, and they just shoot maybe based on a storyboard. I asked him, do you use a storyboard? He said, because when I asked him, he has recently finished Everybody Knows. But he said, in Iran, I never use a storyboard. But when I went outside of Iran to make film, they asked me to, have a storyboard. I did it, but when I wanted to shoot, I put aside everything. So for this film, they just use a one handheld camera. And he said that based on the location, because location is very important. There are two maybe maybe points of view when you want to show the location to your audiences. Some filmmakers first show you the establishment shot to give you an kind of general idea about the geography, about the location. But Asghar Farhadi doesn't want to give you this. Just as you said, he wants to make you kind of claustrophobic or something like that, because he doesn't want you to detect each place in the in the location. But it will. So he first goes, as I asked him directly, he first goes to the location. He first chooses the best location that he wants, and after that he goes to the location. Based on the location, he writes the mise en scène and work with the he does the rehearsal with the actor or actresses in the location, in the real location. So just like I asked him, do you use 2 cameras for your film? He said, no, I have never done this before. Just by 1 camera, but by using by using mise en scène. For example, one of the scenes that I love is when he introduces his characters to us. The first time we see Razieh, he sat on on a bench or on a chair in Simin's and Nader's home. And the camera comes, camera follows Simin. And after that, the camera stops and stays or stands on Razieh. And we understand that Razieh has been there for maybe 1 hour, half an hour, and using the different cuts. And if you want to draw, a plan of the home, I think you can't. It's impossible, because he doesn't give you a general or maybe a view of the location that he uses. And also some people, I'm sorry, my answer is too long, but just I want to give all the information.
No, it's so interesting.
Yeah, and also some people criticize Asghar Farhadi not using any long shot. In the film, you can't see too many long shots. Most of the scenes are, not close up, but, they are medium close-up or medium shot. Why? Because he has a philosophy. He says that normal lenses can't judge you. I don't want to judge my characters, so I use normal lenses, medium shots. Medium shots doesn't let the audiences and also me as a filmmaker to judge my character. When you have a close-up, you have a focus on the characters and you ask your audiences to focus on something special. So this is the thing that I think in most of his films, he tries to, do that.
I've got to tell you that I'm part of this group, obviously. The 2 of us are involved in this. And unfortunately, I was the one who had to lead the discussion of this film. And I felt totally ignorant. So I immersed myself in as much as I could. And so much of what you brought answered questions that I had. I'm not sure that they ever came up in our discussion. But one thing that we talked about was the challenges that he faced in making this film, both artistic and political, religious, moral, whatever. And it's been fascinating listening to you. I mean, the whole question of color and costume. I was taken by the fact that I don't know if you're familiar. The American DVD has a section where you can watch the film with his commentary over it.
Yeah.
And one of the things he talks about was the how to get around, for example, the fact that the Iranian audience would immediately say, well, all of these women are wearing their head covering. And they're in their homes. They don't need that.
Yeah.
Well, the reason is, I would not have understood this, that there's an exception for actresses. In a dramatic situation, all bets are off, that you have to wear a hair covering. It doesn't matter whether there's any verisimilitude involved here. And so he manages to provide plausible reasons why this, when a repairman or a strange man in the shot, that allows you to see this. And and also how to deal with when the granddaughter says goodbye to her grandfather and it happens off screen. I mean, you hear what's going on, but the fact that, again, this would involve contact between a young woman and a man who was not a relative in real life. And it's just, so all of this was something that intrigued me, and particularly the question of when I learned that he shot this entire film, particularly the end, which is what my wife, the quickness of the cuts and how he must have had to shoot the same scenes over and over and over again to get the quantity of viewpoints and
of course.
It just intrigues me that he would have made that an aesthetic choice rather. Now I can understand. I mean, he also talks about how he was restricted physically. There just wasn't a lot of room for camera in the places where he was. But I've got, just beyond that, I've got to say that of this film, to me, we had seen The Salesman, which shares a lot of elements, and it's a brilliant film, I think, but it didn't affect me in quite the same way as A Separation, which for some reason we did not see. And I too would never have guessed that the same director did the two films that he's done in Spain and France. I mean, they're just so different. But it's just it's been so helpful to listen to the background of, oh, green, oh yes, fine.
All these little choices.
Yeah, thank you. Just I want to give you because you said something about a dress code in Iran, after the revolution, as you said, because of Islamic law or something, they forced the actresses to have a scarf or something. And it's not logical, it's not acceptable. For example, when there isn't any stranger, or when they are at home and they are in the bed, they don't have this in the real life. So just because we will have a film by another Iranian filmmaker, Abbas Kiarostami, and some different filmmakers in the after the revolution, they had different strategies to do something. For example, Kiarostami said, I don't make film in at home, just I go to the maybe desert or maybe some exterior, because in exterior and in our life in the street or maybe in the car, it's acceptable that Iranian women should wear a scarf. But here, because Asghar Farhadi makes most of his films maybe in interior, so as you said, he had another strategy. As you said, the repairman, when is a stranger, you should have a scarf. And also there is a scene in the film, as you have watched the film and you know that Simin teaches English in an institute, and she has something in Farsi called it magnae, is kind of official way of a scarf. And when she wants to leave the place, she changes her scarf. So it shows how this how this class in Iran, doesn't believe on those kinds of, dress code, and just because the hijab or, having the scarf is mandatory, they should do that. So there are some elements that doesn't allow the censorship to censor Farhadi's film, because I have written a paper about these tricks that he has to, go away through the censorship, because most of his film has not been censored. But just I want to give you some restriction that you said. After the Green Movement in Iran, we another Iranian filmmaker, maybe you have heard his name, Mohsen Makhmalbaf, is also a great filmmaker and his film has been in some international film festival. He supported Mir Hossein Mousavi, and Asghar Farhadi defended him. And the Ministry of Culture of Iran summoned Asghar Farhadi and say, stop the filmmaking, stop the shooting, and come and explain why you defend these people, this guy. And Asghar Farhadi came, went there and said something we don't know, but they let him to make, because he was in the middle of shooting of this film. So yeah, so he made this film, and some people criticized him that, okay, maybe you did, said, excuse me or something like that. But he answered, it was better to make this film because they wanted to, stop shooting this film. And also you said something about the different cuts and different, maybe points of view. Asghar Farhadi's background is from theater.
Yes.
So for example, when he wants to do rehearsal, he takes all the actress or maybe actors with himself in the location for maybe 2 months. And they work with each other for 2 months in a theatrical way. And sometimes I think the shooting, takes maybe 3 months or 2 months. It's not like, very fast, way of filmmaking in Iran, because in Hollywood, I think you should have the plan for each scene, but in Iran, or maybe I don't want to call it artistic or art cinema, but maybe the directors have more freedom to do something more. Also he was the kind of producer of the film, sort of. So he had this freedom to do what he wanted. Maybe you want to shoot, for example, 20 takes for a scene, and the producer says, no, you don't have this freedom to do that, But Farhadi could do that. And as you said, he used different points of view and different cuts to just, shoot a scene or sequence or something.
Yes, I was fascinated by the fact that one of the actresses, the woman who plays the caretaker who is hired, talks about a particular scene. I think it's the one that takes place in the stairwell, that he shot 57 times.
Yeah.
And I thought, how in the world did he get away with that? Well, if he was the producer, I guess.
Yeah.
He was able to manage that. Yeah.
Maybe David Fincher or just some other, because, for example, I've heard that David Fincher sometimes shoot a scene for 100 times. Just
Astonishing.
Yeah. So yeah.
No, I've got to say that I think generally speaking, the group of, there were 10 of us discussing this film, and we were all incredibly surprised. Many of us had seen others' films of his, and this just blew us away.
Yeah, it really struck a chord.
Yeah. And it was, to me, I can't remember being quite so excited about a filmmaker, even though I had seen other work of his, that since I saw my first Renoir film. I mean, in so many ways, he works within the constructs of his society, but creates a very human dynamic. And I'm interested in you're talking about his his working from a dramatic point of view, and how so often when you see a film that is made from either a script or an actual play that has been transformed or transferred to the screen, it feels like a play.
Yeah.
This doesn't, to me.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, he does not have the benefit of many exterior shots, or a variety, as you said, of medium shots and long shots, whatever. But there was just such an intimacy about it that it didn't feel like I was watching something that happened in a proscenium.
Yeah. Actually, I had something to say about Farhadi, and I want to completely agree with you. I think this is not my just theory, but I think we can divide the Iranian cinema before and after Farhadi.
Yes.
Because of some reasons, maybe you have seen some Iranian films before Farhadi. In most of those films that we will watch, you think that, okay, this is a country that is still the camel are in the street, and the infrastructure, the people speak Arabic, they customs, because as I said before, our filmmakers was forced in a way, or they had a strategy to make film in the places that they could. For example, make film about children, something, because of some censorship or something. But Asghar Farhadi said to himself, as I know, that I want to make film in a modern structure, modern building. Because of that, I brought the map of Iran in Tehran, in a people that the social classes, there is a clashes, I think, is a kind of country, contradiction between clashes, or kind of clashes between different social classes in Iran. And you see that these people are like the Western people. They play piano, they they listen to music, and they drive, the women drive, so yeah, this is. And also after this revolution, I think, in Iranian script writing or screenwriting, some new generation tried to write some script like Asghar Farhadi. But they couldn't be Asghar Farhadi, So I hope, because I haven't seen his last film, but I have just read something about his last film, A Hero, and they say that is something like a separation. Some people said that is better than separation. Some people say no. So we should, just wait and watch the film.
Has it had an American release? I mean, theatrical release yet? Because
theatrical release, I think.
Yeah, the Ambler hasn't shown it yet.
Yes, we haven't.
Yeah. I think the Amazon actually has the distribution right of that, and the theatrical release will be in January, I think.
Oh, okay.
But now is in a festival circuit. As I said, the premiere of the film was in Cannes Film Festival or Cannes Film Festival, and in Telluride in United States, and in Toronto. Now is in the festival, but I think it will be released maybe in January.
Yeah, I just checked. We should in early January, hopefully.
Yeah. You put it on the list, please.
I will. Zardosht, this is my first Farhadi film. So I did not know what to expect, but I was really drawn into it, and I was kind of surprised by the intensity, but that definitely was part of what drew me in. And I was wondering, you were talking about the different classes, that the character of Razieh, even though she is a member of the lower class, honor is something that's really important to her. And at one point she claims that she's more upset about being called a thief than actually losing her child. So I was wondering if you could talk about the importance of reputation and honor.
Yeah, of course. When this kind of gap, I said, because after 1988, all the governments that came to power in Iran, also maybe you have seen this types of film like Parasite, is also clashes or kind of contradictions between two classes. Or Shoplifter is a Japanese film also. They are mostly about this gap. We have some people in Iran, especially in maybe working class, because of the internal corruption in Iran and international sanction. They moved from working class to lower class. They used to work, they used to earn money by themselves. But this kind of, issues, they made them lower class. So now some maybe middle class look at this people, as kind of parasite. They say, no, they are illiterate people. They just religious. And sometimes when they come to your home as a servant, they want to steal something. But Razia, as you said, Razia is a person that has ideology. He is a religious and says, I just worked. I didn't go to that room. I stayed here and I didn't do anything wrong, So this is a reason that Farhadi made this film. He said that I saw people from different class in a street that they were talking to each other. I said to myself, it would be nice if they could talk to each other. So Nader is not a bad guy of the film, but because he looks at this class from this, there is a gap. The first thing that comes to his mind is Razia has stolen something from his family. And he wants to react, and he realizes that no, he wasn't right. Nader was the person that, lied in a court. So to just make it short, I want to say, being poor, it doesn't mean that you are a thief, And also I want to share with you that Farhadi's maybe most favorite film in the world is The Bicycle Thieves. And so also in that film, because we analyzed that film in his master class or something, also it's one of my favorite film actually. He tries to show that the people, some social or political situation made these people in this situation. And also Hojjat was a person, had a small business, but he went bankrupt because of, some maybe social issues in Iran, political issues in Iran. So just I try to, bring different aspects of this character to say that Farhadi, I think, tries to say you should talk to each other. You should, not the government, because it's a kind of, maybe warning to the government. This gap is, has been changed dramatically, has been, grown dramatically. You should do something. And the people who works in outside of Tehran. And if you remember, there is a line in the film that Nader asks Razia to come earlier, and she says, it takes 2 hours to get your home. 2 hours, and the people because Tehran has 15 million people, you should, just commute 2 hours to just get around 8 a.m. This is a social issue of the working class, the lower class in Tehran in 2011.
I guess it's been fascinating to listen to the extrapolation of some of the things that we talked about, and from a point of view of some knowledge, rather than simply trying to guess at things. But the thing that impressed me, I was clearly aware that there was criticism, at least commentary, shall we say, about social issues, moral issues, whatever. but Farhadi never hits you over the head with them.
Yeah.
It's so subtle.
It's all very subtle, and it's and even in the actual structure of the narrative of the various plot points that trigger something else, the whole business about why he accuses her, Razia, of being a thief.
Yeah.
Many people in our group, and I certainly didn't pick up on this, I thought, why is he saying this? When it didn't remember at the beginning of the film that she pays the people,
the piano movers,
piano movers out of that money. And I thought, that's Hitchcock. That's the MacGuffin, the little thing you wouldn't remember, except that, oh my God, of course, it's so important.
Changes the whole plot direction.
You know, and I think that's one of the reasons I reacted so strongly to him. Not only is he important in his own right as a creative genius, certainly. I mean, but the fact that he is drawing on so many influences and fits so nicely into the pantheon of great Western directors, not just Iranian or any other local national director. This man is an important director in the whole scheme of what cinema has been.
Yeah, you mentioned two interesting points that just do I have time, Julia?
Yeah.
I want to go through. One is the details in the film, that sometimes most of Farhadi's films, you know, start with the very small details that we don't you know, look at them. We don't we don't consider them. When something happens, oh, as you say, oh, it was the thing that I didn't care or something. And the second thing, as you said, that he goes and he scrutinizes something in a subtle way. This is the way that some people criticize Farhadi. You know why? Iranian people and Iranian critics, they, oh, you don't criticize the government. Why you don't criticize the government? Why you very directly say that, for example, they are oppressive or something like that? And for example, this year, when he was in Cannes Film Festival, all Iranian, not all, most of Iranian people, you know, maybe expected Farhadi to say something about, you know, government of Iran or something like that, but he didn't say that. And so many people on Instagram, you know, and they went to IMDb and wrote comments on his film, something like that, you know, because some people believe that he should do that. He has this tribune and he can say something.
Right.
But in the art or making film, Farhadi doesn't want to do that. I want to go through, you know, very, maybe it's relevant or unrelevant, I don't know. Two Polish filmmakers, Krzysztof Kieślowski and Andrzej Wajda. Andrzej Wajda made some films against the socialism or maybe communism, direct criticizing the country, the government, but Kieślowski didn't do that. He made something, as you said, subtle or something like that. So most of the critics on that time criticized Kieślowski. No, you're betraying your nation, something like that, you know? In some maybe polarized, you know, country, maybe polarized nation, sometimes people, you know, ask these filmmakers, this acclaimed filmmaker, to directly, you know,
confront.
Yeah, but this is a personal choice, I think. But actually, I think this is a way that, as you said, when maybe after 20 years, again, we can watch this film. Because I used to teach this film in my class at Temple, as international cinema class. And my students, 24, I had 25 students, grad and undergrad students. I have chosen 20 films, 25 films from different countries for that class. I think their favorite for the class was Separation. So after 10 years, still you can watch this film, and still when you watch this film, you find something. So as you said, this is a way that maybe in cinema or art, it's better to not directly, refer to something, or maybe.
Well, it's interesting to hear your comments, because that was one thing we were really curious about in our film group was, well, what has been the reaction of Iranians who, I mean, it's all well and good for us to enjoy this movie, but this isn't about our culture. And so people who are living that, what did they think of that? So it sounds like it's.
I guess the question comes down to Farhadi, does he sell tickets at the box office?
Of course, in 2011, still Farhadi is maybe the only Iranian filmmakers right now. And this film had a large box office in Iran. And also in Iran, Iran most prestigious film festival. This is a Faj Film Festival. And also he won maybe all the awards, the best actress, best screenplay, best. So critics and Iranian audiences love Farhadi. On that time, 2011, there was a maybe government. It was another film that was supported by government against the Green Movement. And government tried to say that film was, had a better maybe box office or something like that. But no, based on statistics, it seems that Farhadi's film still has the best box offices in Iran and also around the world. I think we don't have this kind of Iranian filmmakers that his films or her films have had a great box office inside and outside of Iran.
Do you think that perhaps Farhadi now is trying to direct his career more to create an international audience for his work, so that they will at the same time then appreciate his works that are more specifically centered on Iranian society and subjects?
I don't
to a film in France. I mean, obviously he lives in France, but to do one with Spanish, he doesn't speak Spanish, I don't think.
Yeah.
And to deal with major Hollywood, quote unquote, stars in a film like everybody knows. It just intrigues me that how do you, once you've achieved that level of success, how do you then try to direct your career?
Farhadi told that I never leave Iran because government, we have some Iranian filmmakers that they are in exile or they just migrated from Iran and they couldn't, have the successes that they had when they were in Iran. So his last film has been shot in Iran, and he tried to, because I know that because he said that also he had some, maybe suggestion to make film in Hollywood, but he didn't make. And he said, okay, no, I want to make something that I love to make. So he doesn't want to just make film outside of Iran, but after his successes, some international producers, for example, I think his international films, maybe like The Past or Everybody Knows, has been made by some, international producers. Right. But he tries to be, to have this balance, making film in Iran and after that making film in another country. Mm-hmm. So he tries to, and also he said to us that I try to change the way of my filmmaking a little bit in some different films. As you said, you couldn't understand, if you didn't know, you couldn't understand, I couldn't realize that Everybody Knows was made by Farhadi, and also A Separation was made by Farhadi, because the way of shooting, color palette, the way of acting, everything are different in those films. But I think when he comes to Iran, maybe it's because of the weather, because of the culture, you know. I don't know. You know, the way that he makes his film in Iran is a little bit same most of the time.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Okay.
Yeah. And you guys everybody should come back again next month when Zardosht will be returning with more Middle Eastern cinema for us. So thank you so much, Zardosht.
You're welcome.
Can you preview the first? You said two of the next films are Iranian as well as the Afghani film.
Yeah, actually, for this series, we have chosen with Julia and Chris 4 films from Middle East. The 3 films are from Iranian filmmakers. 2 of them was made in Iran, inside of Iran. One of them was Separation, that we watched and talked about, discussed about. And the last one is A Taste of Cherry by Abbas Kiarostami, the first Iranian film who won the Cannes Golden Palm in Cannes Film Festival in 1997, I think. And Abbas Kiarostami is maybe most well-known Iranian filmmaker around the world. And all filmmakers in Iran loved him. So they said, okay, before Farhadi, he comes from a generation before Farhadi. This 3rd Iranian film that we will watch maybe next month is a film that was made by an Iranian female director, Shirin Neshad. Shirin Neshad lives in New York, and film was made in Morocco, I think, but is about Iran and about Iran, you know, kind of coup d'etat that happened in Iran in 1953. And it's a big, and the film won, you know, award in Venice Film Festival. It was her first film. So next month we will have a film by Shirin Neshad and the Afghan film.
And what's the title?
And the title is
Women Without Men.
Women
Without Men.
Okay.
Yeah. And the Afghan film is the first film that was made, you know, 20 years ago after, you know, Taliban, you know, came to power, because they didn't want the cinema, but after them and before coming to, if Julia remember that, before, you know, again that Taliban came to power, I proposed this film. You know, we didn't choose this film because of something happened to Afghanistan just 2 months ago. We have decided before that. So I knew that we should, you know, screen a film from Afghanistan. But unfortunately, something happened in Afghanistan, and now I think we can talk more about that.
And what is
the title of that?
Osama is the name of the character of the film.
And those will be on the first Tuesday of every month. So it'll be the first Tuesday of November, December, and January.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Zardosht.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. And it was a great discussion. I learned a lot from you, and I really appreciate that.
We learned far more from you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.